Star Trek's best Doctor Who crossover is Strange New Worlds. Star Trek Strange New Worlds would be the perfect place for any Star Trek and Doctor Who crossover to take place. Recently, Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies reiterated his desire to crossover with Star Trek, something he initially considered for one of David Tennant's final specials in 2009. In Doctor Who Season 14, Episode 1, Space Babies, RTD even went as far as suggesting that the show takes place in the Star Trek universe by suggesting the TARDIS could visit them someday. However, it's just as likely that the 15th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, was just winding up his new companion. Regardless of how fans square this bit of dialogue, Russell T Davies is on record that he wants a Doctor Who and Star Trek crossover, and he's shown a preference for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. In an interview with Collider, Davies professed his love for Anson Mount's Captain Christopher Pike, so it seems likely that any crossover will happen on Strange New Worlds. Luckily for Davies, hailing frequencies are now open between Star Trek and Doctor Who, as RTD will be joining Alex Kurtzman for an intergalactic friendship panel at San Diego Comic-Con, as revealed on Instagram. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is perfect for a Doctor Who crossover episode. Strange New Worlds is the only choice for a Star Trek and Doctor Who crossover for several reasons. Firstly, if the two biggest TV sci-fi franchises in the world are to finally crossover, the Doctor's TARDIS has to materialize aboard the USS Enterprise. Strange New Worlds is the only Star Trek show that can facilitate the meeting of the Doctor with classic characters like Spock, Ethan Peck, and Uhura, Celia Rose Gooding. If a Doctor Who and Star Trek crossover is worth doing, it's worth doing well, and that means Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor flirting with Spock on the Starship Enterprise. The Strange New Worlds cast are no strangers to a high-concept crossover episode either, following Season 2's Those Old Scientists, which crossed over with the animated series Star Trek Lower Decks. In a Star Trek show that's done a fairy tale, an animated crossover, and a musical, a Doctor Who crossover might not even be the weirdest of Strange New Worlds high-concept episodes. While it's easy to select which Star Trek show should cross over with Doctor Who, the behind-the-scenes negotiations that would need to take place are another matter. What to expect from Star Trek and Doctor Who's Comic-Con panel? The one thing that fans shouldn't expect from Russell T Davies and Alex Kurtzman's Comic-Con panel is an official announcement about a Doctor Who and Star Trek crossover. Doctor Who Season 15 and Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 have recently wrapped filming, making it unlikely for anything to happen soon. Disney Plus are yet to commission a third series of Doctor Who from Russell T Davies and the BBC, so it would be highly unlikely that they would sign off on a crossover with a huge Paramount property like Star Trek. Attendees heading to the SDCC Intergalactic Friendship Panel should expect a discussion about each franchise's shared values. The Doctor and their companions in the TARDIS and the crew of the USS Enterprise all travel the universe to expand their horizons and right wrongs. Peaceful resolution is the default setting of both shows. The Doctor doesn't carry a gun, and Starfleet's finest have their phasers set to stun. So, while Doctor Who and Star Trek's characters aren't crossing over anytime soon, Davies and Kurtzman's panel will highlight a crossover of ideals that continues to inspire hope and optimism for the future after 6 decades. Wil Wheaton breaks down his Wesley Crusher comeback in Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. Wil Wheaton is back as Wesley Crusher in Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 after over 3.5 years of keeping his role in the second season of Netflix's animated series a secret. As a traveler, Wesley Crusher becomes a mentor to the young Starfleet hopefuls of the USS Protostar in Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. Together, Wesley, Dalrell, Brett Gray, Gwyndala, Ella Purnell, and their friends must protect every Star Trek timeline from the reality-eating threat of the Loom, as well as repair Star Trek's broken Prime timeline. Scatterbrained, motor-mouthed, and deeply heroic, Wesley is crucial to Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. Screen Rant had the pleasure of chatting with Wil Wheaton about keeping his comeback as Wesley Crusher a secret, how Star Trek Prodigy welcomed his ideas, and the possible future of Star Trek's own Time Lord. Wil Wheaton is proud to be part of Star Trek Prodigy Screen Rant. Congratulations on your comeback as Wesley Crusher. Prodigy Season 2 is one of the best seasons of Star Trek I've ever seen, and Wesley is a huge part of why. Wil Wheaton, thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I keep hearing this from Star Trek fans that they're comparing us to the later seasons of Deep Space Nine, which is an enormous compliment. I think the last 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine are the best Star Trek that's ever existed. So to even have an opportunity to be on at the same table as that is amazing. I don't think that we should be that surprised. Honestly, Kevin and Dan Hageman are amazing. And they know exactly what they're doing. And their writer's room is brilliant. They worked really, really hard to put together a story that kids who had never seen Star Trek before could fall in love with and relate to, full of characters and references to existing storylines that their parents love. I've met people over the last 30 years who have told me that they grew up watching Star Trek with their parents because they loved Wesley and their parents loved Star Trek, and that, over time, they came to love Star Trek as well. And I absolutely love that, and I am so honored. It is such a privilege, and I am so grateful to be Wesley again on a show that kids can watch with their parents that can be an introductory point for Star Trek for a whole new generation of kids. Wil Wheaton on keeping his return as Wesley Crusher a secret. Wil Wheaton. It's been the hardest thing. We spent like 3.5 years. I cannot believe how long it's been. And there was a moment where I was like, is it just not ever going to come out? Like, did we do it, and it's not going anywhere? And I'll never get to see it? It's been quite a journey. Wil Wheaton, not a lot of people knew. I mean, the folks who worked on the show, obviously. Most of my Star Trek The Next Generation cast didn't know. My space mom, Gates McFadden, knows. Jonathan Frakes knew. Kate Mulgrew knew because we had scenes together. But nobody else knew. It was a gigantic secret. When I worked on Picard, nobody on Picard knew that it was coming up. And for years, people have been saying to me, man, I want to see Wesley again. Do you think he'll be in Strange New Worlds? Do you think he'll be in Prodigy? Do you think he'll be in? And every time I was like, I'm going to tell you a big old lie right now because that's what I have to do. I don't know. So sorry, everybody. Surprise. The thing that's kind of cool is that both times Wesley has shown up in Star Trek in this current, what we call the Latinum Age of Star Trek. It's been a giant surprise, a huge reveal, one of those moments for the audience. As a performer, you kind of hope for maybe one of those in your career, right? Just one of those really great moments. Orson Welles said of The Third Man, you want to be someone that they spend the first 2/3 of the movie talking about, and then you show up for the third act, and you haven't done anything. They've done all the work to make you cool, and then you're just there, and you just cash. I feel like that was happening with Wesley. The people were doing all the work, getting all excited for him, and then there he was. And I'm just so grateful for how it all came together. That's so true. It's interesting you said that. You're almost like the shark from Jaws. There's a huge setup for the first 2 acts, and then there you are. Wil Wheaton. We even recorded me for some lines that are in the first season where we don't yet know that it's Wesley. We recorded some lines, I recorded them, and Robert Beltran recorded them, and then they blurred them together for another point where you're not supposed to be able to tell. They worked really hard to keep it a secret. I do remember at least once seeing on Reddit someone predicting Wesley would show up in Prodigy as a traveler to do a thing, and I can't remember how far into the prediction they got before they diverged off the timeline, but I just thought, wow, that's weird. So whoever that person was, I imagine they were rather proud of themselves when that episode dropped.